Welcome to the 9 to 5 Solution, where we are a voice for business owners and for those thinking about launching a business. Now here is your host, Terrell Danzy.
You're tuned into the 9 to 5 Solution with your host, Terrell Danzy, and I'm sitting here in the studio with Miss Diana George. Say hello, Miss Diana.
Hello, hello, hello.
So I'm excited for this interview. We met, a few days ago?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Well, I kind of try to start the show off with a quote, and this is from Kevin O'Leary, and he says, "I'd rather invest in an entrepreneur who has failed before than one who assumes success from day one." So I'll say it one more time, and it's from Kevin O'Leary. "I'd rather invest in an entrepreneur who has failed before than one who assumes success from day one." Mean anything to you?
It means a lot to me, and I think definitely as an entrepreneur, I've been in that situation myself, and I think that you learn from past experiences, and you learn from those failures itself, but those failures don't have to define you.
Exactly.
And you get up and you use that experience to now go forward and navigate and do the things that you want to do, so very appropriate quote.
Good. You know, I think that you said a few important things there. Get back up. Because sometimes we let our failures and we'll wallow in them sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs. And I think that it's important that we say, you know what, we failed, get up, learn from that mistake, and keep it moving. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your company. You just recently launched it this year, right?
I did.
Okay.
I did in January itself.
Okay.
And so a little bit about myself is, and that's a great thing, I've been reinventing myself for years.
Right.
And it started years ago, and even in my career, I've done so many things, but I've taken everything that I've done to forward me and put me where I am today. And so I've been in human resources for quite a while now, and that came by mistake, really.
Okay.
I was a consultant working with other companies and helping them to do things, and ironically enough, I really couldn't get to help them do the things that they wanted because there was always employee relation issues or always things that had to do in the human resource realm. So I just decided, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be here and continue this. And so I just started to do it, and I had a lot of fun doing it, enjoy people, and worked for a company earlier on in my career, Bose Speakers, that really helped us to understand human resources and the role that we played and what we did. And so I really got it early on.
Okay. So now the name of your company is By George,
The name of my company is By George HR Solutions.
Okay.
And it was interesting because a friend of mine were talking one day, and actually he came up with the idea. We were just talking, and all of a sudden he says, "By George," and it just stuck. And so
I like it. I seen the card and said, "Man, this is very creative."
Yeah, it just stuck, and so I love it. And so By George HR Solutions, we offer everything in terms of human resources and how do you have those conversations. Because I will say that human resources is really about communicating.
Right.
It's about communicating and making sure everyone knows how to do that effectively.
Right.
And it's putting the human back in human resources. And that's what I really enjoy doing.
Okay. So you worked, I seen your bio, you worked for, in the corporate sector for about 30 years, if not more. What made you take that leap? Because the show is actually about the 9 to 5 solution, really kind of transitioning into an entrepreneurship role if you are at that 9 to 5. So tell me what made you take that leap.
Sure. And I've taken the leap a couple times.
Okay.
And going back to what we said earlier, sometimes you have to, get back up. And so I have been in corporate America. As you said, I've been with Bose Speakers a number of years, and I've worked for them in Germany. I worked for them here in the States, and had a chance to really help them develop and put together some of their major platforms when it came to retail and other things. And so at some point, you almost get to the point where you realize you can't go any further in what it is that you're doing, or that you cannot continue to pursue those dreams that you have. And that's okay. It's okay to identify that, and it's nothing wrong necessarily with the company, but it's just time to move on, and we operate on a bigger platform. And so, I was at Bose Speakers, and I decided at that time, it's time for me to, just step out on my own and transition. And I did that, and during that time frame, I met a lot of amazing people. And
Were you scared?
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the scariest thing?
I think the scariest thing is that you're passionate about something, but it's like other people are going to see that passion, and is it going to translate into an actual business itself where you can help people?
Right.
And so I think that's the biggest thing, just being afraid of, okay, am I really going to be able to do that? And you don't have the comfort so much of that organization itself that's behind you, but on the flip side, you really get to create it the way that you want to create it, and that's the fun part of it itself.
Of course. So I think the thing sometimes with entrepreneurs is, and even if we are working a 9 to 5 and we're in the corporate sector or wherever we are, we tend to think that we're not living our dream. But I want to emphasize that sometimes when we're in that world, we're learning. It's always a process. So, while you were in corporate, what were, I'd say, 3 things that you were able to just take away and say you can transition them into your business now?
Sure. One of the biggest things I said, because I'm in human resources right now, I got to understand a lot more about human resources and what it entailed and how it worked and how to be effective in human resources. So I would say that would be number one. Number 2, I learned about leadership and what it really meant to be a leader, because sometimes when you're working for somebody else and you're not that leader, and the examples that you see, how do you now translate that into the type of leader that you want to be? Right. And so I really had an opportunity to see great leaders. I had a great individual that I worked under, and so I learned all the best things about how to operate with people, the things that motivated people, that got them excited, and so I was able to move forward with that. And then I think the other thing is just that work ethic itself, and just understanding that it takes a work ethic, and it takes doing some things that maybe you're not always comfortable with, or that you don't always like, but at the end of the day you will gain something from it and you will learn something from it. So to really persevere in that and not just get comfortable in just doing what it is that you've been given the job to do. You need to learn what other people do around you, and so when you learn what other people do around you, you really become a more effective individual all the way around.
That's great. That's great. We met Friday at a conference. You very passionate about sexual harassment in the workplace. Talk about how you have been able to make that impact and what you are currently doing right now, because like I said, you were very passionate about this. So let's talk about that.
Sure, I'm very passionate, and the reason I'm very passionate is because I see when you put the right trainings in place, or when you give people information and let them process that information. And so the last job that I did work, I was the HR director for a global luxury retail company itself, and so we had many different locations. And so how do you take a subject that can be difficult to talk about at times, that people really don't want to confront or talk about, put it there so that you can have the necessary conversations and that they can grow from that, and then have a sense of transparency in the organization. And so I was able to do that, and as a result of it, I was able to really build some key relationships with individuals as a human resource individual itself, where that people would come to me and let me know what was going on, and so we can solve it and we can come up with a solution before it really got out of hand. And so I think that's the key right now, because in terms of sexual harassment, it's something that we're talking about. We're doing a lot of talking about it, but I think we need to pull it back a little bit in terms of how do we even get to the sexual harassment part. It really starts earlier on. It starts with respect in the workplace. And when you start earlier on with the respect in the workplace, and then teach people about certain things, have them understand what should be there, what shouldn't be there, have those conversations and navigate them through that, then you don't get to the point that you have to have necessarily the sexual harassment, and you have people that's informed. And it really is about having people that understand, are informed about things.
And probably over the last year or so, year and a half, you've seen it a lot in the media. I've seen some interesting statistics. It went from as low as 25% to up to 85% of who have been impacted by some kind of sexual harassment. Have you seen that number, and what do you think? Has there been significant progress, and What's your take on that?
I have seen that number because I think that for such a long time, larger organizations in particular, they do have policies in place. But the thing is, how those policies are interpreted is determined about how people are onboarded in the beginning, what the company culture is itself, and how that message is given to people itself. So even though it's been there and the policies have been there, they really haven't been looked at, and they really haven't been adhered to the way that they should be itself. And so it's been there for a very long time. It hasn't gone away. The focus is just on it right now. And so it means that we have to really have the conversations and take a look at how we're going to effectively now put this program in place or address it itself so that people truly understand what sexual harassment is. And I think in terms of the numbers, I think that if you go back and have conversations with a lot of people, a lot of women in particular, they've experienced this at some point in time in their life. I mean, I know that I have, and this was earlier on when I was in high school. And at that time, it really, it was one of those things that there was no real discussion about it. There was something that transpired where they did move me out of the area that I was in, but I look back on it right now, I doubt if anything was ever happened as a result of it. It was kind of just like, okay, let's just, move her to another area itself. And so we can't keep doing that anymore. We can't just like sweeping it underneath the rug, but we have to be willing to have conversations itself.
And I don't think that a lot of people know when sexual harassment is in the workplace or the investigation is found, there's millions that they have to spend on just going and investigating and taking on a new sexual harassment case.
Absolutely. But I mean, besides all the money that is spent, you have to take a look at what this does to a company, an organization itself. You're looking at employees itself. You're looking at employee morale and what happens to employee morale. You're looking at the reputation of the company itself. And you're also looking at production. I mean, companies are there to have a product that they want to get out or produce in some sense. And that does damage the ability to do that because people are not focused so much on work right now, but what's happening in their environment. And so it becomes a toxic environment. It's not a good environment to be in. So it does have long-lasting effects that goes way beyond the money. And then the money is there also itself, that companies that wind up putting out. But just being concerned about employees when they don't feel that there is transparency or they don't feel safe to come forward and say something, it really is not an environment that produces where people are going to work together as teamwork and really be able to have the necessary conversation.
Right. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back talking to Miss Diana George.
Daniel the deer danced everywhere. He pranced through fields and jigged through rivers. Then he saw it. What a stage! A place no deer had dared dance before. The hood of a brand new car. My car! And the car was covered, thanks to Farmers Insurance. Deer Dance Floor, December 1st, 2014. Talk to a farmer's agent. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Call Todd Tettleton at the Tettleton Agency for Farmers Insurance at 404-327-6377. Have you been injured in an automobile, motorcycle, or truck accident? Then you may need the services of personal injury lawyer Kwame Thompson. Kwame Thompson and his professional staff are ready to handle your claim with the dedicated resources to secure the maximum compensation. Call Kwame Thompson at 404-994-5948 or visit them at 235 Peachtree Street, Suite 400. You can also visit them online at kwamethompson.com.
Hi there, healthy people. Do you have a healthy product or service? If you are a certified medical professional, fitness trainer, author, or chef, Old Fashioned Health would love to promote your services or product on the Old Fashioned Health radio show. Please reach out to us. Call 404-793-3960 or email us at oldfashionedhealth@gmail.com. You can also contact us at oldfashionedhealth.com. Old Fashioned Health, good health inside and out.
All right, we're back on the air with Miss Diana George here in the station for the 9 to 5 Solution. So, Miss Diana, I've got another question. There's a huge disparity with minorities and women in business, especially when it comes to resources and competency in the U.S. What challenges have you faced just starting your own business?
So challenges that I've had to face is just really getting out there and finding out where are some of the solutions, because there are resources and sometimes there's definitely things that can help you out there, but unless you know where to go to get these resources, you're kind of like just stumbling in the dark. And so it really has been like doing the research and trying to find out where are the resources that I can go. There are a lot of small business initiatives that are out there for women and minorities. I happen to be in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area itself, and so there's a lot of contracting that's here. And I can tell you from being here, I've learned that there are different organizations, and they want to be able to give minorities and women the opportunities, but you have to find out.
You gotta find it, right?
You have to find it, and then you have to get certified and figure out all these things. But the plus part of it is there are organizations that are willing to help you. So just going online and finding out in your particular area, where are some of these organizations, where are some of the resources, but they are there, but sometimes they just don't jump out at you itself where you're aware of them. You really have to go out and figure out where are they and then find them.
What has been your, say, biggest challenges or learning curve just starting your business within the last few months?
So the biggest learning curve for me, and in the sense of a learning curve, I knew it, but I didn't estimate the amount of effort.
Right.
It's just getting out there and getting your name out there and having people know, because you're in corporate America and you step away, and so now you're doing something entirely different. You're doing it for yourself. So just being able to get those individuals in front of them so that you can tell them about what it is that you do. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can do that itself, but that's the thing. How can I be most effective in getting what it is that I do out there to people so that they're aware now? And there's social media, I've learned, is such a big, important part of what it is that you're doing. And I have to say, I wasn't that social media person before, the Facebook Live.
So you've been converted.
Oh my gosh, I'm converted.
I'm
converted at this point.
Right. It's a great way to interact with your customer. So a lot of small businesses don't understand that they need HR services. This is more of a two-part question. Tell me what services you provide that small businesses don't even know about.
Sure.
And why it's so important that we would hire a consultant to come into our business to make sure we're doing the right things.
So I think when any entrepreneur or any person decides that they're going to start a business, they have this big vision. And so they don't expect themselves to stay small. They expect themselves to grow and have this major company itself. And what that means that you will have people working for you.
Right.
And so I think that really you need to start thinking with that in mind earlier on. Okay. And so that means really putting all the structure in place, because your human resource department, what they really do is they establish what the organization is going to look like. Okay. So it's a matter of establishment, and so sometimes enough time doesn't go into that because you're trying to do all the other things. And so you can't forget about that part, because you're the one that came up with this great vision. You're the one that has this idea in your mind. You're the one that knows how to do all this. But now as you continue to grow and you have employees, unless that's translated into job descriptions or onboarding a certain ways for people to do things, you're not going to be able to duplicate what you want them to do.
Right. That's good. Yeah. That's good. So I'm assuming that your typical customer is probably, they're already established. Tell me what your customer looks like, what you're going in and you're helping them do.
Sure. Right now, in particular, and you saw how passionate I am, and so it really is on the whole sexual harassment and the training that goes along with it. New York, as of a couple weeks ago, October 9th, they just put in place, Governor Cuomo, a policy that all businesses, regardless of the size of employees that they have to have a sexual harassment policy in place that is state compliant. Okay. They also have to have an interactive training for all the individuals that work for them. And effective January 1st, they also have to be able to onboard employees with this training within 30 days of them coming on board. So they are just that. New York is just one.
And they're probably going to take the lead because every other state it'll trickle down.
Absolutely. And so New York is, I think, added to about 4 of the states right now currently that have similar policies in place. You have California, California, you have Maine, Connecticut, and I believe Delaware, and so now New York is added to that. But you're just going to continue to see this happen more and more. So if you're a brand new organization, the smart thing would be to put this in place from the very beginning. So then you don't have to worry about this on the other side itself. And so it really does also set the fundamentals and establish how you want your organization to be run and what's important in terms of your culture and how people operate within the organization.
Being more proactive versus reactive.
Exactly.
Which you probably see the majority of companies are reactive.
Exactly. And reactive is costly. I can tell you, when you're reactive to something, it's because something hasn't been in place. And now what you're trying to do is fix something that now has become a problem. And so you don't want to do that. You want to be able to have these things in place itself. So that's, definitely one of the things that I do. And going back to that, just onboarding is so important in the organization itself. When you have new people start, a lot of times, employers hire employees, and then there comes a point, it's like, okay, this person's not doing the job right and I need to get rid of them. Well, when you hired them, you were so sold on this person. This was the right person, and you felt you had the right person in place. So I think that what needs to happen also is, as an employer, we need to take a look at, okay, have I done everything to set this employee up for success? Okay, have I given them all the tools that they need? Have I given them all the training that they really need? Have I interacted with them enough to see how they are doing in their new role? In case there is something that needs to be addressed. And so we don't want to get to the point where employees are surprised that they're not even aware that you're feeling a certain way.
And if you feel that they're underperforming.
Exactly. Exactly. So we don't want to get to that point itself. And so it goes back to what I said earlier. It is about communication. That is the most important thing, if I can drive home, is having that communication itself. And so also in this social media age where we have people that are so connected to their telephones and their everything that's their computers, we need to dial that back a little bit. We need to be going back to having those good old-fashioned conversations, speaking to people in the elevator, as we walk down the street, eye contact, and not just assuming that a text is going to appropriately get my message across. A text and an email, there's so many times that things could be misread in a text or email as to what the person meant to say or what they didn't mean to say. And so the only way that you can really change that is through actual conversation itself.
Now, we talked earlier, you are a A&T alum.
I am.
Are you still involved with A&T? And another two-part, how important to you is it that you are in the community and you're giving back and you are taking a lot of the younger generation with you and showing them, hey, this is the right way to go?
Sure. Well, I am still very much connected. In fact, next week is North Carolina A&T State Homecoming. Aggie Pride. very excited about that and going down. But, you take a look at our colleges, our universities, our historically black colleges itself, and even kids that are in high school and coming up. This is our future. And so in terms of this being our future, it's so important that we're giving back in the community that wisdom that we have, that, experience that we have. We need to be passing this on earlier rather than later itself, because they're good. Let's face it, this is a generation that's going to be taking care of us when we get to be older. And so we want to set them up for success in being able to do that and do it well. And there are so many opportunities because of where we are right now in the social media age that I think our younger people have that maybe we didn't have coming up, or I didn't have, but we need to show them, make sure that they are using it correctly itself, and don't forget that there's still things that don't negate a conversation or being in touch with people. So I feel it's so important, and so I'm always looking for ways that I can get back out in the community. I've always been very involved in education itself, because through education you can really do anything. And so making sure that people are educated, but they know it's not just about going to the right school, or it's not just being in school. Education is life learning.
I'm still learning. I just had this conversation with my dad earlier about reading. Just if you read an article or two a day, you're going to learn so much. And I think that's one thing that we tend to slack on, is really kind of opening a book or reading an article just to learn something new, or even learn, to perfect whatever entrepreneur role that you're in. We need to read. We need to learn.
No, you're spot on itself. I mean, nothing can take the place of that. And one thing about education, when you have that, no one can take that away from you. It's yours forever.
Right.
You know, no one can now say, okay, you don't have this or take this away, or you have this and you can use this to improve or do anything that you want in life.
Good deal. My last question. You work for global companies. Do you see any difference with the structure of any from domestic companies to global companies as far as their HR or any other issues? Do you see any difference with how we're set up in our country?
I do.
Okay.
And so I would say that when you're taking a look at globally, you know, itself, I think here in the U.S. in terms of how we do business itself is a little different from, I would say, Europe or other countries, especially when it comes to HR sometimes, because they have a different way of looking at things and how they do things. And so, you know, something that we really, you know, feel very firm about or is important to us may not be as important to them. However, what's happening is you have so many global companies that are here in the U.S. And so I've seen that be a challenge also because, for instance, the last company I worked for was a Swiss company.
Okay.
And so they're used to doing things a certain way, but they operate in the U.S. And so there's that understanding on both sides. Okay, like, why can't I do this here in the U.S.? Because that's not going to work for you here in the U.S., where it may work for you, you know, someplace else. And I think that goes across the board. It's not just human resources, but it's marketing, it's everything. We have a different way of doing things that's here that impacts us versus in another country. And so I think there's ways that we can be learning from each other on what those successful actions are, because at the end of the day, I think everybody's looking to be successful in whatever it is that they're doing.
Good. So, Ms. Diana George, where can we find you? What platforms can we find you on?
Well, you can find me on just about every social media platform that there is. You know, my website is www.bygeorgehr.com. You can reach me at solutions@bygeorgehr.com. We have a Facebook page. It's by George HR on Facebook, and then also Twitter handling. So I'm across the board. I am everywhere now on social media. LinkedIn.
Now you're a guru.
I wouldn't say that, but you know, definitely feeling more comfortable in the platform. Definitely plugged in, and so definitely people can reach out to me at any point.
Sounds good. Well, we thank you for coming on the show. You've been tuned into the 9 to 5 Solution with your host, Terrell Danzy. See you next week.
Thank you so much, Terrell.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the 9 to 5 Solution, encouraging listeners to think differently on purpose. The 9 to 5 Solution airs every Thursday at 1 p.m. on WWE The Real 1100 AM.
Thank you for listening to another Old Fashioned Health Network show on The Real 1100.